and I don't want to miss anything. Recording in progress. Today we welcome as our guest speaker, Valeria Matayoshi and her bio. Ms. Matayoshi was born in Buenos Aires, graduated as an architect from University of Buenos Aires, holds a postgraduate degree in architecture and technology from Ditela University. Ditela, thank you. She is currently a doctoral candidate at FADU-UBA, focusing her research on Japanese architecture and cultural hybridization. She's been teaching at the same institution since 2003 in the Design and History of Architecture programs. Currently, she teaches at the CBC in the subject of design and urban design and architectural design. She completed an internship at Tokyo Studios Atelier Bow Wow and Shigeru Ban Architects, and received the Diploma of Merit from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. Now, mind you, this is a very edited bio. Her bio is much longer. Please read it on the website. She has won awards in furniture, interior, and urban design and published widely. She has a beautiful bio on our website under Luncheons. So today's talk, the concept of hybridization, extensively developed in the social sciences by authors such as Nestor Garcia Conclini and Peter Burke, allows us to understand these processes as the combination of previously differentiated structures or practices that generate new configurations. Although hybridization has been widely studied in the social sciences, research in the field of architecture is scarce. Hybridization in this case occurs through different elements, through objects themselves, spatialities, notions of nature and the passage of time, usage of light, etc., and through ways of inhabiting and making, construction techniques. Even though Argentina and Japan are two culturally distant countries, examples will be presented to illustrate the possibility of their hybridization. In order to achieve this aim, 3 dimensions of connection between them are proposed: aesthetic sensibility, material objects, and the spaces produced by immigrants. Finally, potential guidelines for future hybridizations will be explored. Ms. Matayoshi.
Okay, good. Can you hear me all well? Okay, thank you for coming to this meeting today. So my talk would be about hybridization between Argentina and Japan in architecture. First, the concept of hybridization takes its origin in biology. This is hybridization in plants, really. So 2 different kinds of seeds were like cross-pollinized, and the result, and the result is to check the different characteristics of the plants resulting on this cross-hybridization. And do you know this book? It's a children's book, really, but it's called Remarkable Animals, and as you can see, the book is divided in three different strips. So when you move the strips, like some strange animal comes out. So those are some examples. But in this case, it's not hybridization because the result is a combination of 3 different parts, but you can tell apart the 3 different parts. So not all the encounters result in hybridization. In this case, you can tell who is an alligator part, you can see, and you can tell apart the different parts. In hybridization, you have A plus B, and you have as a result a C. Within the C, you cannot tell apart different combinations. But in the case of social sciences, you can say, well, this is Nestor Conclini's definition. So social cultural processes in which discrete structures or practices which previously existed separately combine to generate new structures, objects, and practices. So if we can check Nikkei cuisine, have you tried that? So you have K-pop music, you have Bollywood films, you have tango, dance and music. All these examples are a hybridization. You cannot tell apart which part is from where. So the notion of identity, does not coincide with the notion of nationality. So it's not the same boundary. If we can think about Argentina, for example, you can think in the northern part of Argentina, and it's very close to Bolivia and Paraguay. So if we think about Argentine architecture, would you say Buenos Aires architecture is an Argentine architecture, or would you say that mud and earth architecture is more Argentine architecture? Both are, really. But the thing is, identity and nationality is not the same thing. So, talking about this hybridization, we can find the Medici effect. Do you know the Medici family? So it was a 15th century Florence-based family who was a patron of scientists, artists, philosophers, thinkers in general, and they gathered in Florence. And this gathering resulted into the explosion of Renaissance, really. So cross-culture, cross-field encounters result in innovation. So what Franz Johansson says is, the most powerful innovation happens at the intersection where ideas and concepts from different industries, cultures, and disciplines collide together. So they make different and innovative configurations. But when you think about Japan and Argentina, we can think about many concepts that are worldwide known. For example, emoji, yeah? Kawaii, karaoke, kaizen, this is more business-like, tsunami, typhoon, samurai, dojo, ikigai, bonsai, kimono, all those words. Origami, good. Someone else? Yeah, many of them martial arts, really. Sakura, ikebana, good. Sushi, we know many words that are worldwide in any language, you can understand it. So by 2013, in this art triennale in Aichi, they thought, would kenchiku, that is architecture in Japanese, become a word like karaoke? Would it be internationally known? Because as a teacher, I know Japanese architecture is studied and, let's say, between inverted commas, copied at university. But would it be that kenchiku become a karaoke word? So kenchiku. So I brought for you these two books, and the interesting thing about these two books is they don't call it Japanese architecture, they call it Japanness in architecture, and the other one is Japan in architecture. Why is that? Because we were talking about before that Japanese refers to an identity that calls to a nationality. Some scholars argue that being Japan an island, you can tell apart which one is from Japan and which one is from beyond. But in these cases, architecture, they are not telling us there exists a Japanese architecture. There exist some guidelines or some continuities through history that you can tell that is Japanness architecture. In the case of genealogies of its transformation, I brought you some of the chapters. And for example, possibilities of wood, transcendent aesthetics, roofs of tranquility, craft as an architecture, linked spaces, hybrid architectures, forms of living, Japan discovered, and living with nature. Those are the chapters. And within those, we have hybrid architecture and Japan discovered. Those two chapters regard as hybridization as the main point of the explanation. So hybridization is part of the essence of Japanese architecture. If we think at the origin, first some concepts come from China, really. So hybridization, it's not something that occurs like isolated, but it's part of the essence of Japanese architecture. And the most amazing thing about this, that inside this book, we have this. This is RCR. This is a Spanish studio. And it's in a book of Japanese architecture. It's something weird, but it's not. Look, Isozaki, that it's an architect in Japan, he wrote a book, that the one we see before, sorry, that book over there. And he mentions the himorogi, that is this. The himorogi, it's a space, and he recalls it as the origin of Japanese architecture. Why is that? Because, as you may know, in Shinto beliefs, the kami, the divinity, just lives in some things, for example, in nature. Let's call it a river, maybe a stone, maybe a tree. So in this case, the himorogi, what it does, you can just limit a square in the space. And within that limit, the kami can be present. It's the possibility of the presence. So it's not because some people just translate this as emptiness, but it's not emptiness in the sense we understand it. It's emptiness in the sense that it's a potential space where anything can happen. So in this concept of emptiness, you can see the same thing happening here. This is Teatro La Lira in Spain. So as you can see, what the architects did is just make the limits, create the boundary of an empty space where anything and everything can happen. In that sense, RCR is a Japanese architecture style studio, let's say, because they recall these concepts. Maybe we cannot call it Japanese architecture, but maybe it has a Japanese concept within it. And we can mention this too. This is a house. This is a Nikkei couple who works in Buenos Aires. But as you can see, something reminds you of this, doesn't it? The same concept. Yeah? But can we think about Argentina and Japan in particular? So, if we can mention Argentina and Japan, geographically, we know it's the antipodes of Argentina. And also culturally, actually, there is this model that measures the distance between two cultures. It was done by Hofstede. He studied IBM employees around the world in some categories: power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. And as you can see, the biggest gap we have is masculinity. So Argentina is, let's say, more feminine-oriented in the sense that's the power, who gets the power in society. Long-term orientation, as you can see in Argentina, we don't have much of that. And indulgence, yeah, the way we see society, we see life more freely than in Japan. Japan, I guess, is more structured. But we can see some concepts that, even though they are not included in the book I mentioned, they are very Japanese in this sense. For example, this, can you see, well, this is Tadao Ando. He's a Japanese architect, and he made this, the Church of Light, next to Osaka City. And you can see that, he builds the cross with no material. Yeah, he builds the cross with light. look at this. This is a chapel made in Córdoba province from an Argentinian architect. And look how he makes the cross with a shadow. So through the day, you can see the light, the sunlight entering the window. So there are two like wood sticks, really, that are far away from each other. But at some point, the light, the shadow that enters through the window makes the cross. So the cross is made by the shadow. In this case, the cross is made by the light. Same concept, different places. But if we see Buenos Aires city, look, this, because I'm a guided tour also, I put these photographs that are the most recognizable places in the city. But if you see, well, this is Italian, this is English, this is Spanish, this is French. We are the result of a worldwide combination and hybridization, really. We cannot say we are Argentinians. Of course we can, but we are the result of hybridization. All our cultures are. So the means of how this process takes place, we mention objects, like in the case of architecture, buildings, people who travel or migrate, concepts. Well, we saw the use of light, really, the notions of nature and the passage of time, yeah, different like times during the year, specialities, and ways of inhabiting and making, yeah, techniques, but also the way we live and we inhabit spaces. It's not the same, for example, Japanese house. We were talking about with Masako about the dashitsu, the tea house, and the Argentinian house. Even though we are distant places, even though all of this we can understand the context in which all these concepts were born, I think, and I'm sure, we can make a hybridization, and we can learn from it. Well, Masako told me some people from this group visited this place. It's the Casa Museo Japón, it's the Minca in Boulogne, in the province of Buenos Aires. And a Minca, it's a vernacular house, a traditional house, rural house, that was brought to Buenos Aires outskirts, and now it's a museum. Yeah, it's a museum with modern contemporary art and art crafts, really. So in this case, the object was brought from Japan to Argentina. They disassemble it and reassemble it here. So the object just went through some transformations in the roof, really, and in the basement too. As you can see the inside the roof, you can see the structure. This is all original. Look, the master beam too. And the tatami and some collections. Yeah, below that, we can have the tatami, the fusuma, yeah, and you can see a small step here. And you can also see the shoji a little bit. Here, shoji are sliding doors made of paper, and you can see the connection between the inner part and the outside, the nature. So this is a kind of blurry, but you can see here a section, a traditional section, really. So in Japanese architecture, you don't have, as we have, like very fixed and rigid boundaries, yeah, the wall and the window. You have more like a blurred boundaries. For example, this is the amado for rain. This is sliding doors made of wood. The shoji we were talking about, made of paper. And then we have the inner part, the fusuma, yeah? So from outside to the inside, the boundaries, the limits, is not rigid, yeah? You can just move it, and you can go from the outside to the inner part laterally. Even though you have a step, yeah? And you have this part that is called engawa, this veranda, really. So it's covered but it's outside, or is it inside? You cannot tell, really. The only thing you can tell is there's a step here. So, and then you have here that sometimes we have a tokonoma or a special place in the house. So, do you remember the ngawa we were mentioning? Look, this is from a conference we did last week in the Museum of Oriental Art. And this is an office, Buenos Aires-based office, the one we've seen before. But they took the theme of ngawa. Yeah, because it's inside, but it's not inside, but it's just a little bit higher than the other level. Look at this. The tokonoma, the shoji, there are some things that, and it's not only the elements, the way you manage the light. As you can see here, we can see the lamp, the chandelier, let's say. Here, we don't have an artifact. We have the effect of the light that makes the space. So it's not important where, the artifact is. It's the effect and the atmosphere it creates. Look at this. Can you see the blend of the outside and the inside, different textures? Oh, this was one of our projects, very, very old. But the interesting thing is, did you remember the different layers of boundaries we have, like the fusuma and the shoji? Well, here, because it was a tiny space, we couldn't build a wall. So what we did was create different spaces with curtains. That is something we can share, and it's very common in our context. And also in here, look, in here she blended the gallery, that is very common in our rural architecture, and the engawa, the veranda. So she made a mixture between the two. This is from Miyabi Design. She is a Nikkei architect, very young. So, how we do hybridization? I think first, because it's not about only the elements, it's first at understanding the concept, the meaning of the concept, in the context of the conformation of the concept. Second is understanding the concept and the context in which we are applying that concept. And then making the needed changes in order to adapt it to the new context. That is what I call translations. We are like a translator, but of architecture. So we need to design mechanisms that enables the hybridization to happen. As a designer, we are not a copier. We are a translator. And the translator is a creator, really. It's not just copying the thing as it is, because A plus B, it's not AB, it's C, it's something different. So what I kind of pity, it's like some people believe C is A. It's not A, because it needs to be transformed in order to adapt to the new context. One day I went to the Japanese garden here in Buenos Aires with a Japanese man, and I was like complaining, oh, because this is not Japanese. And he said, it doesn't have to be, because you're in Palermo. Just be aware of where you are. It's a Japanese garden in Palermo neighborhood in Buenos Aires city. So it doesn't have to be a Japanese garden as it is in Kyoto. And it doesn't have to be, and it is not. So as I understood that, I think we can just broaden our perspective if we meet and we gather with people with different backgrounds as we are here. So I really appreciate your invitation to join your luncheon. Thank you very much.
I know I say this every month, but wow, I learned a lot. I need like a new phrase because I say that every single month. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to see what questions we have.
Yeah, sure.
We have a lot. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to walk around the room. Excuse me. I'll start in the front and work my way back.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Valeria. I'm totally persuaded that's where I want to live. But I'm just wondering, if somebody, thinking of bureaucracy in this country, if somebody wanted to build a house along those lines, would there be any impediments or regulations or stuff people need to look at to make it possible?
For example, my thesis, it's on maximizing small spaces. In that sense, obviously we have to just follow the rules here. There's an urban rules here. So the regulations are a little bit, now we can have like around 20 square meters apartments. So sometimes we can do it. But sometimes you need a translator. So for example, one exercise I'm doing is like taking the Penshibiru, that it's a typology in Tokyo, and try to translate it into our urban regulations in order to be able to use it here. Yeah. If not, it's impossible.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, now back here.
Hi, thanks for your wonderful, wonderful conference.
Welcome.
And as far as I understand, correct me please if I'm wrong, the Japanese philosophy, let's say that, is a no-frills architecture. It's trimming out all the fat in the building and leaving it to essentials.
Sorry?
Space. It's trimming out all the fat in the building and keeping it to essentials.
Yeah,
So I would like, how does it translate to hybridization in Argentina? Because Argentina is still keen on ornament, Argentinian architecture is still keen on ornaments, etc.
okay. Yeah, and let's call it like this. This I showed, it was a vernacular and very traditional concepts, and keep it to a minimum without decoration and all that. It's mainly, let's call it, a Japanese architecture. In our case, it depends on the client, but you can adapt it. Yeah, because for example, my clients are people who wants to make like tea blend shop, and it's perfect for that. Or an atelier within a house, and it's perfect for that. Depending on the function of the room, you can make it or not. Or maybe that person, it's not useful for him. I think we can learn a lot from Japanese architecture, but I know not all the clients are open to that. So maybe it's the function of the place, and it's the proper client you need to. But even though that, I guess the use of light, not having the boundaries, and some, like the gallery and some spaces, and the buffer spaces are very interesting to apply it in our context. Even though it's not Japanese, but for example, open the door and just stepping in a living room makes your living a little bit awkward because it's outside and it's inside. Maybe if you have a buffer space where you can just leave your clothes, just slowly entering your house, that is going to be a better space. That's for sure. Even though you cannot connect that to a Japanese space, the genkan, I think it's a good, very interesting space. The genkan is like the entrance. So these buffer spaces, I know the decoration you mentioned, but I think depends on the client, depends on the function. But some things you can just apply it, even though you don't know if it's Japanese or not Japanese. You can learn.
Charlie, can we put a Zoom, por favor? If there are any questions from Zoom, I cannot. Trust me, my vision is not what it was. And if there are any other, does anyone on Zoom have questions?
Okay, I'll make a question since you opened it up to us. Thank you, Amy. An absolutely marvelous presentation. Thank you so much for your views, your perspective. I would like to ask about the spiritual dimension in architecture. As I understand it, a lot of that goes into how Japan-ness, or mostly perhaps Japanese, is constructed.
Yeah, the thing, you made the philosophy.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's one thing I think it's very important, and then you can apply it, because if we talk about philosophy, it's going to be very hard to apply it in our context. But for example, the way they think, the relationship to nature, and being one, not something separate that we see from outside, but we are part of it, that we are part of nature. And that belief, I think we can adapt it. Of course, there are some things we cannot. I'm not saying that everything in Japan can be brought to Argentina. What I'm saying is there are some things that can, and then you need to adapt it. I think the relationship between the constructed building and the nature and the self, I mean the inhabitant, and the nature can be something we can learn about from Japan. As a belief.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions in the room? Yes, we do. Oh, right here, and then I'll be back.
First of all, really congratulations. It was wonderful. I wanted to know something about lifts, elevators inside the houses, if you ever tackle those, because more and more older people are needing practical lifts within the houses. Do you have any solution?
Practically, well, one thing I remember that is not Japanese, but it's very interesting, is one case made in Netherlands that, and this is within a house, not a building. Within the house? Well, where they transformed a whole room into an elevator. So this room completes every level it gets. So because it was for a disabled man with wheelchair, so he made a room out of the elevator. So if it was in the basement, was something. If it was in the first floor, was something. So I think there are ways to transform the elevator into a living space. And this is not Japanese, though, but it's interesting as you took the case of the elevator. Was the whole room going up? Yeah, the whole room. And it's very interesting if you... Yeah, the whole room, because he was disabled, and in order not to make the rounds, so he made the whole room an elevator. So if it was in the basement, was some space. If it was in the first floor, that was the room, was another thing. So I think it's an interesting way to think the elevator not as an artifact to just go up, but as a space, as a living space. That was in Argentina? No, Netherlands.
Thank you very much. Okini, as you know, that's Kyoto for welcome. From the Boston Japan Society, actually, and we're very interested in historic preservation, and I brought you some material on a symposium that we put together some years ago, basically in partnership with Japanese architects and the preservation of manchillas, etc., and also the parallel in the architectural world of how space is used, and historically as well. And just as a footnote, the Japan House, I was fortunate enough to have met the architect that was responsible for having that house moved. And a year ago last spring, I went to Gifu and spent a couple of nights in Shirakawa in one of these wonderful houses. So I have a lot of information for you.
Oh, thank
and
you.
I hope that you'll have a chance to...
Information is always welcome.
Thank you very much.
Talking about, do you know the example of Ise Shrine? Well, maybe the expert can tell you about. But it's a shrine that you have two plots, one next to the other. And this shrine just disassembles and reassembles to the next plot, like every 20 years. But it has been like that for 1,000 years or more. So there was a doubt in UNESCO if we could declare or not as a heritage space, because it was really 20 years old. But the important thing of this, it's because of these beliefs that they think every cycle it's like purifying. Really, it's because of the religious, it's a religious reason. But within that religious reason, we have an architectural thing going on. So everything from how the plant is cut, how the tree is cut, how the blueprints are copied, everything is done over and over again every 20 years. So what you, preserve, it's not the building itself, but the way to build it. So the preservation is a whole different thing if we think it from the architecture perspective. So I think, because we talk about that, for example, in Misiones, so I think it's a very different way to think about preservation. Not the artifact or the building itself, but how we build it. So we can build it anywhere if we have the knowledge to do it.
Well, thank you again. I think that the concept of hybridization is absolutely fascinating because it shows how to integrate cultures. So I would like to know, once a teacher, always a teacher. So I am going to ask you something. Is this concept taught at universities with exercises, asking pupils to combine objects or concepts from different cultures in order to produce something new? Because I think to teach this at the university and to force pupils to make the kind of exercises would help to construct a better world. Is it taught?
It's not taught like this, but we call it references. So we studied some examples done in Europe, for example, but usually it's mainly Europe and America. So from that, to understand and to, let's call it, use it between inverted commas, in your project, you have to analyze it, understand it, and then transform it in order for you to use that. Because if not, it's just an image. But it's not called hybridization in that case. It's called references, or maybe you should just check on this building. Not as a concept. That's why, I introduced it to the PhD program because I thought it was very useful to think us as Argentinians as a result of hybridization. And not only between Japan and Argentina, but as a whole, let's call it identity. We're hybrids.
Thank you again. I'm interested in knowing whether you think architecture creates future thinking and change. For example, I think of architectural examples of the Taj Mahal and Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin. Do you believe that architecture can change or hybridize the way we think in the future? And if so, do you have a favorite example of how that happens?
Okay, I think it can shape the way you live. At least it can give you possibilities, and it can close some others. So, for example, it was very clear during the pandemics, people who lived in very narrow or very poor, impoverished places, it was very hard for them. Maybe if you had the bathroom just 2 steps away, it was very easy, just went there. So I think it can shape possibilities, and it can just close some others. And as a future thinking, it's very funny because in urban planning we are doing now, our concept is utopia. Utopia, yeah. How we can build, for example, in Ushuaia, things that maybe at first sight or in a very short term are not possible, are not feasible. But then maybe in 30, 40, 50 years it is. So I don't know if I have an architecture that calls for that, but I think regathering and reconnecting with others, it's the first step. And understanding we are all hybrids. So identities, because we were talking about a lot about wars and conflicts, we are all the same. And I have this Yeah, an architect from Norway told me, you cannot start from the differences. You have to start from what is common within all human beings, and then grow apart in the differences. But then you meet in someone. I think that is a good step. I don't know if I have a favorite architect to do that.
And that is the perfect way to end our conversation. Thank you so much. So we would like to say thank you. Masako, so each time we have a speaker, we like to say thank you with a small gift. We have many incredibly talented artists, and architects in the room. And Masako, thank you, Masako, for introducing us to Valeria, and Masako has a gift from the University Women's Club. Please.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Should I open it? Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Everybody says that every time we open something. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we see you again.
Oh, hopefully. Yeah, sure. Thank you a lot.
Please come back, and thank you all. Enjoy your coffee, and I hope to see you here. Ooh, lights right in my eyes. And our Zoom friends as well. I hope to see you all back here in a month, and I hope to see you all at our activities during the month. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.